I was surprised to learn this. I'd be curious what your thoughts are. I'm not a cannabis smoker. I just never really liked it. But I had a guest on my podcast named Paul Conti. He's an MD, mainly works on trauma, incredible trauma therapist, and has written about trauma, wrote the book on trauma that I think is the one in my opinion. And then we got into a discussion about like different substances and do they have application. So we talked about ketamine, et cetera. Asked about alcohol, just by way of comparison. And he said, there are basically zero therapeutic uses for alcohol, right? Therapeutic.
Right.
But then I asked about cannabis. Now, this isn't something he does in his own clinic. He does talk therapy, not drug therapy. Although he's a psychiatrist, so he can prescribe things. And he said, cannabis is interesting and it may actually have some therapeutic potential, but the main effect of cannabis is to narrow attention and focus. It actually can increase attention and focus. Now, the problem is it's not a very good filter, so people can narrowly attend to just video games or just to their anxiety if they're already anxious. That's a problem. But when it comes to psilocybin seems to increase creative thinking, new rules and algorithms about what could be an answer. So I'm not aware of how it might directly impact visual perception unless it narrows focus. But most of the drugs that impact serotonin are going to increase focus to some degree or another. And that can be good if what you're focusing on is pleasant. It can be really bad if what you're focusing on is really unpleasant. I knew people, I'm sure you don't, who just smoke weed and they have a panic attack.
Yeah, the smoke weed thing is a weird one because it's like many things. It's completely dependent upon the individual, like their individual genetics, their biology, whatever it is that they've had in their past. I know people that smoke marijuana and they're high functioning, and I know people that smoke marijuana and they don't get anything done. And I don't know if they're related. Those two things are related. I think people who generally have drive and discipline, marijuana gives them a break. It gives them a nice just a little rest stop. And I think that's probably beneficial. And I also think it makes you a little kinder, a little more compassionate, a little more sensitive, which is probably very beneficial to someone who's hyper-focused.
Breaking it down, smoking weed helps. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you.
It's true, it does help.
I ain't gonna lie to you. It do.
Yeah. Thank God it's legal now.
Yeah, I didn't start until after my loss to Leonardo.
Really?
Yeah, first time that I did. But honestly, it was probably like the best thing to get it. Because I was angry at the fight. I was angry at everything. I was like, fuck, how can I, this guy, I was like a 10-1 favorite going into that fight. That was the one fight that I never saw I was like, I'm going to smoke him. So I just had this anger. And the only way I saw my dad kind of deal with it was alcohol. So I kind of turned to that, and that is no good. It's
the worst way to do it.
Worst way to do it. It just makes the delusions bigger. You know what I'm saying? It just makes you angrier, and it just kind of compounded everything. But honestly, like when I smoked weed, it was like, because at that point I was like, I had tuned it out for so long because that's what folks did that I kind of associated with being lazy and not successful, right. And these fucking,
me too. I
don't want to be these niggas on the corner,
right.
Like, but when I did, it kind of opened up the anger towards myself. You know what I mean? It kind of opened up my mind for the first time, and I think that actually did have a lot of help with it. I don't like chronic or nothing, but
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think that's what people are afraid of with it too, is that paranoia. I always say paranoia is just you looking at things realistically.
Yeah.
And even the possibilities of things happening realistically. I mean, some people, for sure, if they have tendencies to be schizophrenic in particular, and then they smoke a lot of weed, it could spiral them.
Oh, yeah, but that's not good. Yeah.
Like anything else.
Smoking too much of anything is not a good idea.
No,
Doing too much of any one thing is not a good idea.
I agree.
I mean, weed's the same way.
I agree.
You have to be able to balance. You know what I mean? You can't just fucking sit on the couch all day.
Have this new stream of revenue, too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I signed autographs for Fitterman. Got to give Ryan Fitterman a shout out, man. He pays me a lot of money, so it's a good deal. I'm living a good life.
And so you essentially just travel around with this cannabis company?
Cannabis, and then travel around with Ryan at sporting memorabilia shows, Comic-Con, stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice.
Enjoying it?
Loving it.
It's so great that you've got such a great source of revenue after the career.
That's more than I ever made.
That's amazing.
2.5 times more than I ever made.
That's great. That's great to hear.
At 74. What the hell?
It is nice. It's nice, and it's so beneficial too.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the stuff is legit. There's nothing. It took me a while to get used to smoking it again because I had asthma back when I was smoking it when I was in college, right? So it was really a illegal thing back then too, which I was, fairly conscious of. All my friends did it and all that. Didn't bother me. It just wasn't my thing. But it's taken me a while to practice go back. But I like the buzz.
It's nice.
And the edibles absolutely work. I can vouch for that.
Oh yeah. And the no hangover.
Yeah, no hangover, and also the as far as the being for people that have pain and so it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ain't Ben Gay. It's much better.
Oh yeah, it's a lot better. The reduction of inflammation from CBD is so good. I know so many people that have had arthritis and all sorts of issues. They start taking CBD, it all goes away.
Yep, absolutely.
You had asthma?
When I was a kid, yeah.
Wow. It just like went away?
Yeah, I grew it. Yeah, which that's not unusual.
Oh, okay.
So I just couldn't smoke. I had nothing. I liked it, but I've always liked booze. I don't know what it is about me.
Because it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do we like booze?
Yeah.
Because it's fun.